I just think it's got to be grappling with what is the appropriate level of regulation. So just to continue, the most recent example that I worked on was banking regulation, which was a big deal. We needed to do Dodd-Frank, but then after 6 or 7 years, we learned the effect that it was having. We only lost one bank in Virginia during the fiscal collapse, but we'd lost 35% of our banks since Dodd-Frank passed because smaller banks are deciding they can't meet the regulatory burden and they're selling out to bigger banks. And it was interesting, it was kind of a law designed to stop too big to fail, ultimately started to accelerate too big to fail. So in looking at what was the right solution, we tailored the level of regulation to the size of banks, and then you had credit unions in Virginia, community banks, the National Banking Association, which is women and minority-owned banks supporting the regulation. And I think it will maintain a healthily diverse banking sector. There's other regulations that I've been involved with. There was a long-time regulation in the United States that would ban the export of crude petroleum to other countries. This was a regulation that was put in place during the Arab oil embargo in the 1970s. And this is often the case about a regulation. It gets put in place for a good reason, but then decades later, the reason that led to its introduction has now passed, and you have to reconsider it. So by statute, we repealed the ban on the export of crude petroleum because we now are a producer. And by doing that, we are reducing our trade deficit by selling energy around the world, and we're also achieving an important national security goal. By exporting crude petroleum, we're helping some nations who had to rely on adversaries, Russia, Iran, and others, find other sources of energy and not have to rely on adversarial nations. So there's no one-size-fits-all answer on a regulatory question. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, sometimes it's stay the same, and sometimes it's adjust so it's not one-size-fits-all. But I try to be real practical and think through both the near and long-term consequences.